South Emma Mendez
and Queen Kadi and our brother Tawanda in the building, of course, giving that
salute,
light, love and light.
I'm sure the listeners have loved what Tawanda has been saying today, so this is for a moment. It was a
the sound effect. It's come and gone. But yes, so we've only got 20 minutes left, but we still want to make this 20 minutes powerful, and obviously always is when we come together, things happen, and I'm sure there's people out there inspired, thinking, okay, let me press the reset button. Let me see what I can do. Even sometimes, like myself at the moment, let me just rest for a moment. So in the next few days, next few weeks, I can go again.
Very necessary, sister. Very, very necessary. I learned a technique because Minister Farrakhan suggested it, and we had a look at it. I learned something called Dianetics. And Dianetics just means basically dia through and nous soul, so through the mind or through the soul. So I do a type of counseling called Dianetics, and what it specifically does is that when an incident occurs in a person's life, that moment that something happens to them, they are robbed of the essential life force. So the whole idea is to recover that life force. That's why you see someone that has been vibrant, an athlete, enthusiastic and all of that, maybe they suffer a bereavement that takes a part of their life force. Maybe they have an accident, they get injured, all those things, because their survival has now been threatened. The reaction is to recoil from any threat, so people withdraw. So my job is to free those trapped energies and allow a person to regain their vitality and basically go and achieve the goals that they want.
You say that's through counselling?
Yes, it's a type of counselling. It's a type of counselling called Dianetics, and what I do is I just listen to what a person is saying, but what they're saying tells you where the points are. Then you focus on those points, they run it, because the mind of a person, do you know the mind of a person is the most, well, you know this already, but do you know the mind of a person is, I would say, incapable of error, but what happens is that the mind only works with the information it has. Going back to why word is not bond in certain situations, when you look at why a person was always late, for example, for things, when you really check their lives, you will see that there is a point of trauma, physical or emotional, that basically acts as a command on that person, that when it's time to do something, they start to procrastinate, and then by the time they get over that, it's already late.
It's already late. Can we just pause on that moment? So, and I can relate to that particular one. But we have this whole concept about black people's always late anyway, and it's, I think, black people always late for everything. And I used to be a person who was always late for a lot of things. And I don't know, in that instance, is it just habit because it's something we've always been told, or then does it become a part of us? Or is it become, like you said, a moment in time where it becomes more than that? Yes.
Well, it's an accumulation of things. It becomes a habit. But what is a habit? A habit is a constant action.
Habitual.
But how did that action even occur? Because a baby is born, they know nothing about being late. But now, how come this has now become a part of you? So there is some kind of system that child has gone through that has reinforced something unnatural on them, and they look at it. And so, as you said earlier as well, the trauma is not just from birth, postnatal, but even prenatal. There's stuff that goes on.
Oh, the sounds, the arguing,
all of that,
the vibration of mommy, what mommy is doing,
the emotions of mommy, and the lack of understanding.
Ooh, that's deep.
The lack of understanding in general. So we're going to have to take our community and start from the dot.
Wow.
But from the dot, concentric circles that go out and out and out and out until we cover the scope.
Do you feel like our whole community needs healing, needs counseling, needs that communication, needs that conversation that isn't had? And how do we do it? I know you said we start with one person, two people, a group, a community?
I feel like you are the example of your whole entire question is you, Kadi.
Yes.
Because one, you created the council, because I was sitting there in the Zoom listening to people speaking, and then we had to do what the community does in that smaller group so that the community wouldn't do it. And that had to happen. It took one person to make that decision. That was you. I want to change this, and therefore this is the tools and the resources that I need, and I can bring these together, but I can't do it on my own. Every single thing is a choice.
Yes.
I hate being late.
Yes.
Especially the stigma. And so my kitchen clock is an hour ahead. So that lump of anxiety, that gnawing feeling of that rush, that rush of
right.
And then I failed it, and then that level of I knew I was gonna, and the disappointment inside of myself. I don't like that feeling. I like to know that I turned up on the dot. I ain't probably early, but you're definitely gonna see me there on time because it's my character.
I hear that. But there's one other thing that Brother Tawanda mentioned, and I feel like am I stuck in that space because it's something that I've worked on for years.
Right.
It's that I've got to do something, but I'm going to leave it to the last minute. Then I'm going to start procrastinating and doing every other thing, whether it's tidying up, washing up. This needs to do. And then that point is, I haven't done it. I've done it for many, many years. And it's something
Do you still do it now?
You know what? No, I don't. I do it with a couple of things.
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so on the studies of the mind, this
is counselling for me, by the way. You're talking to me right now.
Well, let's do it. It's our thing. We all need it. I don't know anybody who doesn't need it. We all need it. And the truth of it is that as a village, as a community, we do that for each other. That's why it takes a village, because everybody has got a different characteristic that they impart on a child. But it takes a village to raise a child so that child can lead the village. So it's a complete cycle.
Yeah.
Okay, so with regards to what you're saying, when the mind is confronted with something, it has 5 responses. It can either run away,
fight, flight. Is
that
a reaction?
Similar to that. It can either run away, it can neglect, which is like, to ignore and pretend that it is not there. It can succumb to it, it can avoid it, or it can attack it. Now, out of those 5 they're actually called the Black Panther mechanisms.
Wow.
Yep. Dianetically speaking, from Dianetics, which is the modern science of mental health. So the correct way to deal with anything is to attack it. That's the correct way to deal with anything.
I love
that. But of course, it takes realization. So we've got to see, okay, so what's bothering me? And that's my job. I sit down with you and we explore that and see, okay, what's going on? And then we find where the source of the travail is.
Come on.
And then when we find that, the being that you are is powerful enough to assess that from all varying points, and you yourself come up with a decision and solution to it.
I'm a testimony to that.
And I do feel like sometimes you already know what the answer is yourself, but sometimes you need someone to kind of pull it out of you, or be true to yourself.
You just need a mirror. That moment. You just need a mirror. You just need someone to sound off.
Yeah.
This is important because 2 weeks ago I broke down based on something else, and because something else was that straw that broke my back, I broke all the way down. I broke my whole soul cried, and then I caught COVID. That Sunday I know my soul cried, and then I just felt sick. That's why I was just thinking, what's this feeling? I know what it is. But then before I had to pay for counselling, I wanted to go deep and just go and deal with the solutions, and it really does come from my home. It had to come from my home.
Absolutely.
Then I had to look at my living parent and then go back there, and then when I spoke that truth, all those realizations to my parent acknowledged that truth as the truth.
Okay.
And then apologized.
Wow. And how do you feel after that?
What now? Then we both, I said, I have to talk to you because I don't want a counselor to tell me that it's you. I know it's you. And I know that it's this. All it is the lack of love. That's it. I'm out here and I'm trying to love, and all I'm doing is getting hurt, and I can't take it no more because the facade of joy is a facade when I really feel it. So I can't fake this joy and this happiness because now it's eccentric. Now it's beyond. Now people don't know how to deal with this throttle, and it's coming out and shouting, and it's not me. I'm trying to cover over the level of lack of love that I've experienced all over, and really that lack of love is coming from mom.
I understand.
So mom, how comes I'm feeling a lack of love? And then mom's like, You know, when old school, like, I never get a hug.
Yeah.
This is not what she says, and it's private, but you know what I mean? It does come from where that comes from with her, and we have to realize how much we're repeating.
Absolutely.
But I didn't want to pay for a counsellor to tell me that I needed to go there, and we both said, now go seek a counsellor. And I was like, I'm already on it. I just didn't want to tell me this. So with the counselling, it helped me just look at practical things that can be done, like going and talking to my son and doing these activities that really bring the sense of internal joy that's not a facade. So now I feel like this cup is running over until the next period date, I must add.
Okay.
God only knows what happens when the moon and the water and the tide or whatever, but the main thing is the sense of the source of trauma, or the lack of love, has been spoken out and released, and because when you keep it in, it just keeps speaking
and
to
then
you.
You've got that place of healing where you can start to heal.
Healing is so important.
Absolutely.
And it definitely is. I feel healing is key, because even when we're talking about the village or whatever, even if you're trying to overlook certain things or you have a front, that issue is gonna keep coming back eventually. Not necessarily tomorrow, but you can have a trigger.
Absolutely.
And that's it.
It's like this. Absolutely, sister. It's like our phones, right, or computer or whatever that we use. It's fine until it starts to get used, it gets viruses. All kinds of things come in. And that's what happens with us as people. We were born fine.
Pure.
Okay?
Innocent.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
And as we navigate our way through life, where things happen, okay, and those things add that little bit of a dysfunctional virus here, pardon me, something else there, and towards the end, we're not as vibrant as we were at the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's why. But the specific goal of Dianetics is to erase those moments. So you look at the moment in session, you look at that moment enough to understand it, because once the mind has a comprehensive understanding of something, that thing stops being a problem to it. I'll repeat that. When the mind understands something, whatever is bothering the mind stops being a problem to the mind. It's the things we don't know that affect us, because the things that you know, you can at least plan for. You are looking at them. So my job is to find the unknowns.
Right.
Do you understand? The unknowns.
How important is it to really dig that deep to find those unknowns?
It's 100% important, because it is clearing the channels that are blocked in the communication with yourself, myself, and the universe. And therefore we're not able to even execute on our desire. So we are impeded even on our desire, because we cannot communicate clearly what we want to communicate. It's like, imagine not being able to say how you really feel.
Do you know how many people out there don't, and how it doesn't matter whether you call, like I always promote the Samaritans, any free numbers where you can just speak out, like sitting with somebody on a park bench and feeling comfortable, saying everything, knowing that they're going to just walk off and you'll never meet them again. It's so important to speak it out when you're bottling. You're dimming all your lights down, and the same thing keeps repeating in your mind. When my father passed away, it wasn't traumatic.
With him.
It was like the last few days of my dad and myself. Like, he cooked me dinner, he made me a fresh ginger beer. Like, it was amazing living with my dad. It felt like he knew, but I didn't know. But it was so amazing, and it wasn't traumatic for me, because there was no stone unturned, and there was no regret. There was no space for thinking, oh, we didn't, or if, but. So I understood the power of clearing out that energy and living good with people, because you never know. I will never have my happiness stolen away from me, and if it is, I'll have to face it and deal with it, because my happiness, I deserve happiness. There's a joy that I have, that if people distract my joy, that's because you couldn't deal with my joy, but that don't mean that I shouldn't have it. We'll just separate our spaces, because I got the joy down in my heart. But peace is ultimately what this life is about. Your peace is your sanctuary. Find some peace, and don't let nobody steal or disturb your peace, and recognize when that is happening, because your peace is yours, all yours. These are the things we need to function. We don't have these things, or think that these things are normal, or that we're supposed to have them, but we are.
Come on.
And you're meant to speak out to your counselor. We are promoting mental health, because from your mental, in your mind, it leads down to your toes. All your nervous system comes in from your mind, and your mind is an aerial that takes in external information and then distorts your body. So I can read how you are, where you're at in your self, because of that information. Be careful, because the most powerful thing going on is the information within.
Yes.
And you have to use your lifetime to discover who you are, and everything that you can do every day to enhance your character. You're doing yourself justice. The more you can be loyal, trustworthy, on time, this character, that character, I want to be better in these ways, and then you go about doing
perpetual improvement. Which is one of our courses of study that we do. There's so much. We're gonna obviously talk. Maybe I don't know. You want to do this again another time?
We're gonna have to. There's so much we haven't.
I'm inviting myself back to your show.
You're inviting. You can invite yourself back. You can definitely invite yourself back.
We'll work it out. But one of the most interesting studies that I did is called Self-Improvement is the Basis for Community Development. And that's a course of study by Minister Farrakhan. Because until you improve the individual, until the individual improves, the society is not going to improve. And the book Dianetics was written by a man called L. Ron Hubbard. Some of you may know or may not know him. Now, I'm not saying look at anything other than let's focus on the science, because what we are interested in is what works. That's all we want, what works. And we have learned basically the mechanics of the mind. We have learned what causes that psychosomatic illnesses, which is illnesses that are caused on the body by the mind. We learned that fears, regressions, suppressions, compulsions, addictions all come from this thing called an engram. And an engram is a moment in time that is recorded like a video, but with all the feeling, the sound, the smells, and everything of an incident that happens to a person.
Is that like post-traumatic post-traumatic stress, or things like when you have that trigger, there's a moment there.
That moment, yes. Yeah. So specifically that moment, the mind records everything that occurs. So everything that has happened to us since before conception, in fact, by the time that our consciousness enters, and that is actually when we're still within, is recorded.
And so when we talked earlier about the genetics and slavery and things like that, all that is part of the science and that you're talking about that needs to be. Okay.
Absolutely, because that forms a way then we are raised.
Yeah.
And
so I was going to ask quickly before. Sure. So the research done behind it, does it take, or is it a research specifically for the life and the trauma of black people, especially black British people? Because I know there's sometimes lots of research with Black American, African Caribbean, but sometimes being in Britain, like first generation, me and Emma, we have a different experience my friends and my cousins who's been in America, but their nan and their nan's there, but we're first generation. That experience alone in Britain is different. It's a different experience.
Well, definitely every single individual, even those that are born here, each individual has got an individual experience. The way we process things is going to be unique to ourselves, regardless of where we are. However, the mind, the studies of the mind reveal that whether it's a European mind, whether it's an Asian mind, whether it's a black mind, the mechanics of the mind are similar.
Okay.
Of course, the experience is going to be different based on environment, culture, language, traditions, customs, and all of that. That will produce a different combination of things, but essentially it's like a mathematical equation that is being solved.
But if I can remember correctly, like the mind and the way the brain develops differently, and it starts developing, I think, from the age of fully developed, I think was it the age around 14 or so. So even when we're looking at the mechanics of trauma and things that happen, your brain can form differently, if that makes sense. So then the science would then be different, if not correct.
I don't deal with the brain. I deal with the mind.
Okay.
Come on, there's a difference.
And there is a distinct difference. The brain is physical.
Okay.
Yes.
The mind is a computing machine.
No, it's invisible. It's the highest source of self. Like, you can't comprehend it, you can't weigh it, you can't measure it, you can't comprehend it, and you can't fathom it.
Right.
The mind.
That's an understanding. The mind itself is, why I say it's a computing machine is because you even talk about it. You say, my mind. It's something you own. It's yours. My body, my brain, all of those are components. But you yourself are not your mind. You are what we call the soul, which is the spirit. That's truly who you are. Absolutely. So that's who you are. And these components are the tools that you use. It's like you driving your car. You're not your car. It's your car. It reflects you because that's your choice and that's how you want to travel around. But you are not your car.
Yeah.
So the essential your mind is like this. It's just it's the monitor that we look at and see, okay, now it's time to put this track on, or it's time to do this. I need to know, how long it is before the next break. That's the analytical process. So what we're saying is that if we clear the circuitry in the mind, you have a clear mind. And that clear mind, then you are able to achieve your goals easier, because that's the whole purpose of the mind. It's meant to assist you. So when trauma, abuse, emotional distress, physical injuries, all of those things happen, they impinge on the mind. So that's like we said, that's your phone with all the viruses. It's no longer as fast as it was. It's now not even calling properly. It's now going blank. Do you know what I mean? So what we do is we locate those moments and uninstall them one by one until you have your mind.
I think everyone needs to have this.
Because counselor, you are again the incomparable, right?
Thank you, Emma.
The magnificent soul, the brilliant mind, Tawanda Mohammed. It's been amazing to have you here today. As we close up the show, I did want to leave you with the word real means actual.
Okay.